Welcome to Junk Bucket Garage. Today we'll be working on this piece of junk.
Welcome back to Junk Bucket Garage. Today we're going to do the displacement on demand deletify on this 2013 Chevy Caprice. Here we go. Okay, first thing we're going to do to start this project is, of course, gather the things you're going to need. It's my understanding that the heads have to come off of this car. So, drain all the coolant. And that means taking that thing off because, you know, I don't know. Always disconnect the battery first. You don't want to let any of the smoke out of the wires. I did that already. And now we're waiting for coolant to drain. And then my philosophy is to start from the top and work your way down because, well, I guess that's the only way you can. Dumbass. Take off the air cleaner, and then we'll get into these hoses and coils. And I mean, it's an LS motor, right? How hard can it be? Don't know why I said that. Something you definitely want to watch out for on these L77 motors. I don't know how well you can see that, but hopefully you can. That rubber on that harmonic dampener is looking pretty wore out. So I'm gonna have to order one of those. Those apparently go bad on these a lot. Apparently when you take off these coil packs, you don't have to unplug them all. That's kind of neat. Wished I would have known that before I wasted a bunch of time. But hey, gotta learn sometime, right? One thing you're gonna need a special tool for is taking these fuel lines off. I have these little plastic ones that kind of just open up, close around the fuel line, and then you pop them off. It didn't work for this car for some reason. I had to use one of these cheapy little metal ones. It worked just fine. I always keep a couple different kinds around because you never know what's going to work and what's not. Notice taking this engine apart, there's quite a few things that if you just pay attention, you don't even have to take bolts out. I was down here trying to figure out how to take this whole bracket off to get this reservoir off, and you don't even got to do nothing. You just pry that little tab and lift it out, and then that could just stay on the head. That's 2 bolts and a lot of fiddling that saves me time. One thing that I like is so far everything's been very easy to get to. There was one bolt for a ground on the back of this head that's kind of a pain in the butt to get, but once you get that ground off and like 3 connections under there and all the stuff that's easily accessible to disconnect up here, this whole wiring harness can just come out, lay off to the side. This one, I don't think we're going to be able to take it out of the way. I'll look, but I don't know. But there is plenty of room here to move this around and just work around it. Since I'm able to work around it, it's really not even worth the headache trying to unplug everything back there. But I know eventually all of this front stuff's got to come off because I'm changing the camshaft to an LS9 camshaft. Just mild, You don't got to change the converter. You don't got to do any special things. You can run it without a tune, but I am going to have this tuned since I'm deleting that displacement on demand. I want to delete the active fuel management, and so it will get a tune. But that LS9 cam is just a little tiny bit bigger everywhere. It might or might not sound a little bit bigger through the exhaust. I'm not really worried about that. The main thing I'm worried about is you don't have to change the torque converter. You could just drive it with the LS9 camshaft just the way it is. It's a small upgrade since we're in there. But this is where you got to start thinking about what you're going to do with the car. Because if you're going to race it or whatever, do big modifications in the future, now's the time, I guess, since you're doing the DOD delete, to get the big camshaft and the stall converter that goes with it and all that stuff. But for just a daily driver, all I want to do is get rid of that faulty or prone to be faulty displacement on demand system, those garbage lifters they have in there. All I'm replacing them with are some Comp Cams LS7 lifters. I went with Comp Cams lifters. They're like $40 more, but they have a warranty. And Comp Cams is usually pretty good stuff. So, I mean, so far it's been pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I know there's a lot of videos out there on this stuff, people, but this is my project. So super extra bonus, guys. I took those exhaust bolts out in hopes that that would give me enough clearance to take the head out without doing anything down below, and it looks like that's going to work perfectly. Whew, that saved me a big headache working underneath the car. Now we got to get this manifold off, and we'll get those valve covers off, take the rocker arms loose, and then remove those heads. Here we go. So I got all of these rocker arms loose, and by loose I mean those bolts are completely out. The push rods are still in behind them, but I haven't removed any of them yet. Before I take any of these out, I want to set up some kind of something, and I usually just use a cardboard box, and I'll show you how I do it, so that all of the push rods stay with the rocker arm, stay in order to every spring, every valve. And that's, you know, probably not as important on this motor. I think mostly that's important on a flat tappet cam, to keep the flat tappet lifters on each cam lobe, because they break into the cam lobe and then they have to be put back on the same lobe. This is of course hydraulic rollers, so that's not important, and we're putting new lifters in it. But just for the sake of the old school muscle car guy in me, I want to keep these the same so that all the wear pattern stays the same on, you know, the balls and cups on the ends of the push rod to the rocker arm and on the valve stem. Just something that I like to do, and it helps keep everything organized a little better. So here is an box with professionally poked holes in it. I'm just gonna pop out that push rod just like that. That'll keep them in order for me. I just have to remember that this is the front of the engine. Box of push rods. This is for sale on Junk Bucket Garage for $9.99. There you go, push rod holder. put an F on the front of the box for Franklin. And then I never had this happen before, but 2 of these fell through. I think my ham hands knocked them down when I was trying to put the next one in. That's okay. I mean, new lifters, I don't think there's going to be any issue there with those being mixed up. Now all I'm going to do is take the rocker arms off and I'll just set them in order. Probably not on this dirty floor, but I'll lay something down there and set them in order so that they go back in the same spot. And then it's going to be about time to pop those heads off, get them out of the way, take that valley cover off, and get rid of all those garbage lifters. And then I think maybe before I get too far into taking those heads off, I'm going to get this front accessories off so that I can pull that camshaft out, since I am going to change it. I'm also changing the timing chain to the 3-bolt style cam gear to go with that LS9 cam. And then I'm going to have to pull that damper off because 99.95678% sure that's got to come off anyway, but it also needs to come off now because it needs to be replaced. Hello, where did you go? I need to find you. Help. You're not it either. Found it. If it was a snake, it would have been right there. Now I'm 99% sure that since we are going to swap this camshaft out, the old water holder's got to come out too, like that. It smells pretty easy. To take that power steering pump bracket off, because that's bolted onto the head. All in all, it's pretty easy to do. It's nothing really super. I do recommend, if you're going to do this, invest you in one of these hose clamp taker offers and some good hose picks, so you can get in those hoses and loosen them up. Some of those are a bugger, even after hose picking them really good. Really handy. Now we're going to look at it for a little while because it's break time. Well, we got this thing all tore down and we're taking that harmonic balancer off. First of all, you need a good 3-jaw puller to take that off. Probably rent one, but that damper bolt is really long. It goes way down inside there. And when you're pulling that out with the 3-jaw puller, you can thread this bolt in a couple of threads and then use it to push on to pull that off. The problem is you can't get it to come all the way out before it's back up against this bolt. What you need is this weird puller that's got a really long thing on it that goes inside the crank. I'm not going to do that. I got this drift punch here. And it just drops right down inside there like that. Put my 3-jaw puller back on, we should be able to pull it right off. Easy. Done.
Well, you only have a couple more inches. That bolt is sticking out quite a bit. Take that bolt off.
Yeah, that'll give us a little room. But we're probably going to have to move this condenser. I'm hoping we can just push down on it until it clears, but I don't think that's going to happen.
We'll get that bolt out and then try it.
Well, I took that oil pan loose and I actually got that bolt off of the dipstick or the pickup tube for the oil pump, and that oil pump still will not come off. You have to actually remove that dipstick tube from inside the motor somehow. So I'm cheating. I'm just gonna swap that upper cam gear. That's the only one we're changing anyway. If you were changing the whole timing set, then that would definitely have to come off, and then at that point you might as well just pull the motor out. But I think we're gonna get by without pulling the motor, except for this. Awesome. I'm thinking we can probably just try to move that condenser around, or that dryer, whatever it's called. Move that around a little bit until we can get it out. I don't know. We'll find out. Hopefully we can get the cam out without pulling the engine out of the car. All right, we managed to get the old bump stick out by just lifting this up on this side, and it gave us enough room. So we're gonna put the new bump stick in. I'm not using any assembly lube because it's not gonna sit for a long time. I'm just gonna oil it as it goes in. Get a little oil on there, wipe it around, and we'll get her started. Easy as that. All you got to do is all the other hard stuff. Perfectly tuned elbow. So we're getting ready to put the timing cover back on. These new gaskets, actually you can thread that bolt in a little bit and it'll hold that gasket in place. Don't forget down here on the bottom where it's going to make contact on your oil pan gasket to put a little bit of silicone. Now that we've got a few bolts started, we're going to leave those loose, and you can see this thing can move around quite a bit on those bolts. What you want to do is, while this is still loose and moving, install at least loosely your damper, and that will catch this seal and it'll square that seal up and square this up, and then you can go around and tighten these. If you tighten these first, there's a good chance that your damper seal here is going to be it won't be lined up. It'll be off to one side or the other, and then you'll get a front seal leak. So we'll get that damper started on there to center that, get all the bolts in and tight, then go underneath and bolt that pan back up, and we should be done under the car, and everything else will be up here on top. See if we needed any special secret sauce. Well, we got one head on. We're getting ready to work on the other side. One thing that you want to do on these, pretty much any motor, before you put the head bolts back in, is clean those holes out. You can buy a tool like a thread chaser that'll run down in there and chase the threads. What I do is just take an old bolt and I'll put a cut long ways on both sides, or two sides or three sides. Just use like a cutoff wheel on your die grinder, and then run that down in the hole and clean it off real good, and that'll pick up a bunch of the stuff that's in the hole, and then blow them out. And that's about it. Get this other head back on, start buttoning it up. So we got the head sitting on the car, we got one of them torqued down, and we're gonna torque the other one down. These bolts are called torque to yield, which means you don't just set your torque wrench to a number and then torque them down. You gotta do 3 stages. The first stage is 25 foot-pounds. Second stage after that is degrees, or, you know, degrees of a rotation. And that is because these bolts use stretching, clamping force, or some nonsense. Anyway, check your local listing. But these ones are 25 pounds, then 90 degrees, then 70 degrees. That's for the aluminum block LS. I believe the iron block LS is 25 pounds, 90 degrees, then another 90 degrees. So, anytime you're torquing down a head, or anything for that matter, go on the internet and search it up, get your torque sequence, because it's different for every engine, every head. If you've done a few of them, you probably know that it's starting from the middle out in a crisscross pattern. It's pretty simple. Let's get to it. 25 foot-pounds. Well, one of the nice things about sticking with a camshaft that isn't much bigger than the original one is we don't have to change anything in the valve train either. On these L77s, this valve train is not adjustable. So all you do is torque them down to 22 foot-pounds and you're done. Everything should be fine, hopefully. 22 foot-pounds of torque on the bolt. What I'm gonna do right now, gonna torque them down. That's it, 22 pounds. Done. There's just something satisfying about torquing a bolt. Close my eyes. Yeah, I'm that good. Got it. Got it. Done. What do we do now? I don't know. Tell you what. Hey! No. Yep. Go. Hey! Torque. Hey! Sometimes you gotta sneak up on the valve cover. Hey! Torqued. Torqued. That's not true. Nope. Yep. Oh no. Come on. Let's see if anything lights on fire, huh? I don't smell nothing. So we got coolant in it. Not enough. We'll have to top that off. Like I said, I never drain the oil. We'll run that for a second and then switch it. Everything should be plugged in. Now, we are going to get a check engine light right away. We already know that because we deleted the displacement on demand. That plug is plugged into nothing now, so the computer's gonna go, oh no, and throw a code. But this should run. And let's see what that LS9 camshaft sounds like. Hopefully. Here we go. A lifter clatter. That should all pump up and go away. And of course this thing, since I got this radio unit out, it's stuck on full blast, full heat all the time. I actually have that back in now, so we'll be able to put all this back together. Okay, so there's check engine, and that's going to be displacement on demand unplugged. I'm not hearing any lifter noise. I guess maybe a little bit. That actually almost sounds like the injector's firing. We need to put a little more anti-get hot in there. See if I can do it one-handed without wasting $20 worth of antifreeze. Look at that. One hand on you. Whoa. That'll probably get all set down. Yeah, I had it over here, huh? Check school. Right. Perfect. Alright. This is the part of the show where I have to admit my mistakes and talk to you guys about the stuff you didn't see during the episode. When I started the car there, you could tell that it wasn't running right, if you got a good ear. Well, fast forward to today, which is the day after yesterday. I've done a lot of work to this car. It was not running right. I figured to take it to the tuner. It's a tuning issue now that we deleted that displacement on demand. He told me maybe it had a huge vacuum leak. He couldn't get it to run right. So I took the car back and I said, you know, it don't have a big vacuum leak. Pretty confident that I put it together okay. And these don't have a lot of vacuum. Originally he said maybe the cam gearing is a tooth off. I said no, it ain't. I went back, I looked at the video. It wasn't. Just to be safe, I went into the engine and it wasn't. And then I figured, since I'm in the engine again, I might as well change the oil pump. Just put a whole new timing chain on it. So I bought a timing chain for a 2006 6-liter GTO. Got that oil pickup tube off, which by the way you can do without pulling the engine. Like I previously said in the video, you just undo your motor mount bolts, lift the engine up as high as it'll go. Careful not to break your oxygen sensors off, because you might do that. And then the oil panel actually just come right out of the car. Easy peasy. Except it's a headache. Got that oil pump off, got the whole timing set off, put the new timing set on. Nothing. Same issue. Well, I'm going to tell you how I figured it out. This has two systems that work with displacement on demand. It has the displacement on demand system that uses this fine piece of garbage to turn these solenoids on and off, that shuts oil off to the special lifters for that displacement on demand. It has this plug in it that operates all of this garbage. Then it has a system called active fuel management. Basically, since you've got those four cylinders shut down, the car shuts down the fueling to those cylinders. Makes sense, right? So you figure with this unplugged, it's going to have a check engine light, but the engine's going to run because it only shuts down 4 cylinders when it's cruising down the freeway. Well, that's not true. When you unplug this, the computer becomes stupid. It doesn't know what to do because it can't see this. So it turns the active fuel management on 4-cylinder mode. That was the whole problem the whole time. I found that out by doing a little interweb research. The pigtail that this plugs into is right here. And it actually comes out far enough that you can lay this on top of the motor, plug it back in, and your motor will run fine without your DOD parts in there. So if you do a DOD delete on the 2013 and earlier, I don't know about 14 and up, and you just want to run your car and your camshaft isn't crazy huge, you can actually just plug this back in, set it on top of your motor, and your car will run fine without going to the tuner. If you want to hear what your cam's going to sound like, or just make sure there's no leaks. I even plugged this in and put it on top of the motor and drove the car. It's not going to hurt anything as long as it's zip tied somewhere where it's not going to fall down. Okay, so we found out that was the problem. Basically, the tuner deleted the displacement on demand, but forgot to delete or disable the active fuel management, and it caused so many headaches. Before you go bashing on my tuner, it was an honest mistake. It was the miss of a keystroke, and he made it right. He's been great. It was a learning experience for both of us. Now, fast forward to after that, it's throwing a check engine code for cam sensor. Well, that's not good. When you don't have a cam signal, it long cranks. It'll still run and drive, but it long cranks. Change the cam pickup tube thing. Checked all the wiring. I went under there and checked the crank sensor wiring. It was barbecued beyond belief. Fixed all that. Definitely a problem there, so I'm glad I looked, but didn't fix the crank sensor issue and the long cranking starts. Talked to my tuner, and you'll hear this from some people. He said the camshaft was out of phase with the crankshaft. In other words, you bring number 1 cylinder up to top dead center on the compression stroke, and then put the camshaft in upside down basically. Or maybe they say the engine's on the exhaust stroke, so don't even get that shit in your head, guys. This does not have a distributor. Without a distributor, there's no such thing as 180 out, okay? Basically, the crankshaft doesn't care where the camshaft is. It doesn't care about cam timing. Once you have that number one piston at top dead cylinder, the camshaft is going to dictate whether it's the firing position or whether it's the exhaust position or the intake or compression stroke, all of that stuff. There is no external element to this engine like a distributor that can be 180 degrees out. So if your timing marks line up like they're supposed to, when the number one cylinder's at top dead center, you're good. It'll get you in your head and start eating like a worm and drive you nuts. Don't even think about it. Line up your timing marks, good to go. Okay, so I'm not a one taker. So I went in and I just checked to make sure again that I wasn't a tooth out. I went in there, I figured I'd fix the cam issue. I just changed the whole stupid timing chain, changed the oil pump. I created this cam sensor issue. Here's the deal. This car's camshaft originally came with one cam sprocket bolt. It was one giant bolt that went right down the middle, bolted into the camshaft. Most LS engines have this 3-bolt type, which is very common with any old Ford or small block Chevy or big block, whatever. They're all the same. The difference is, on some models of the LS engine, they have a certain number of teeth on the crankshaft pickup thingamabobber, and that uses this one reluctor type pickup on this cam gear. And then there's another one, which is this one, that has a different number of teeth on the crank and does all kinds of other stuff, and it has 4 of these raised reluctors on the cam gear. The 2006 GTO uses this one. Hey bird, I'm trying to talk here, okay? Can you just give me a break? God, swear to goodness. Chickens, they're glory hogs. They just get right in your shop. Basically, the two... Okay, chicken, I've had enough of this. I put this cam gear in, which is the single reluctor pickup, or they call it a 1X. That's not correct. It needs the 4X. Found the problem, replaced it. Here we are today. Thing runs great. We'll start it up, let you hear that LS9 camshaft. It pretty much makes no difference, but it made a big difference in top end power. Chicken, I swear to God. God. Running smooth, got her all detailed. The exhaust note has, if you're a connoisseur of camshafts, that exhaust note has a little bit of a bump to it, but it's very minute. You never tell the difference. So thanks for watching this episode of Junk Bucket Garage. I hope you guys didn't learn anything at all, and I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Pick you up one of these Caprices if you get a chance. That's a freeway cruiser, man. I love this thing. All right, time to get back to work on old cool junk stuff, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Help a brother out, man. I don't make no money doing this, but I sure spend a lot of money doing that. All right, catch y'all next time.